The dust had not finished falling. That was the strange part. 3 days after the strike, fine gray particles still drifted down over what used to be the harbor district. The wind carried them. The sea carried them. Children in the camps far outside the burn zone found them in their hair when they woke up. Admiral Renas Soli stood at the edge of one of those camps. She wore no uniform. She had taken it off 2 days ago and had not put it back on. A simple gray jacket, boots, her hands in her pockets because she did not trust them to stay still. She was not here to give a speech. She was here because her sister had lived in that harbor district, and her sister was not in any of the camps, and her sister was not in any of the lists, and her sister was, almost certainly, in the dust. Behind her, a young soldier waited. He had been waiting for an hour. He did not speak. He understood that some silences must be allowed to finish on their own. Finally, Renat turned. "Tell the council I am coming." The soldier saluted and left. Far above the planet, in a long silver ship that orbited beyond the moon, Delegate Oran of the Galactic Compact watched Earth with 3 of his eyes and watched his data screens with the other 2. He had served the Compact for 41 standard years. He had watched many species grieve. He knew what grief looked like in 14 different cultures. This was not grief. "They are not crying," he said quietly to his aide. "Sorry." Humans cry when they grieve. They scream. They light fires. They tear their clothes. They sing songs that do not have endings. Oran set down his stylus. "They are doing none of these things." "Perhaps they are still in shock." "No," Oran's voice was very soft. "They are deciding something. And when humans go quiet to decide something, the rest of the galaxy should go quiet to listen." Down in the council chamber, Director Haas stood at the head of a long stone table. The room was underground. The room was old. It had been built 200 years ago, when humans still thought wars would be fought on Earth. Around the table sat 11 people, generals, scientists, 2 civilians who had been pulled in because they had survived the harbor district and could speak about what they saw. One of them, an old woman with burns on her hands, had not yet said a word. Haas spoke first. "The Voreth Dominion struck during peace talks. They gave no warning. They gave no reason. They killed 412 million people in 11 minutes. The Galactic Compact has asked us to file a formal grievance through their tribunal. The tribunal process takes 12 to 18 years. He paused. "I am not going to do that." No one at the table objected. No one looked surprised. The old woman with the burned hands lifted her head just slightly and watched him. A general at the far end of the table spoke. "What are we doing instead?" Haas looked at the door. Renat had just walked in. She was still in the gray jacket. Her hair was tied back with a piece of cord because she had run out of proper bands. "We are asking her," Haas said. Renat walked to the table. She did not sit. She placed both hands flat on the stone and looked at each face in the room. Then she looked at the old woman with the burned hands. The old woman looked back. Renat spoke to her, not to the table. "Tell me what you saw." The old woman swallowed. Her voice was rough. "I saw the sky open. I saw my husband look up. I saw his shadow on the wall, and then I did not see my husband. I saw the wall. The shadow stayed." The room did not move. Renan nodded slowly. Then she turned and looked at Haas. "Give me the fleet." "You have it. All of it. All of it." She closed her eyes for 1 second, just one. Then she opened them. "Then we are going to the broadcast room, and we are going to tell the galaxy something." In orbit, Delegate Oran's screens lit up. Every screen, every translator, every compact monitoring station across 43 light-years tilted toward the same signal at the same moment. Earth was broadcasting. Not a plea, not a request for aid, not a tribunal filing. A statement. Renas Soli stood in front of the camera in the gray jacket. She did not introduce herself. She did not need to. Every species in the compact already knew her name by the end of that hour. She spoke 4 words. "We are done negotiating." That was all. The broadcast ended. In compact orbit, Oren set down his stylus a second time. His aide was staring at him. "What does it mean, sir? Done negotiating." Oren did not answer for a long moment. He was watching the screen where Earth's continents glowed quietly in the dark. He was watching the dust still falling. "It means," he said finally, "that for the first time in this compact's history, a species has chosen to stop being civilized. On purpose, with reasons, and in writing." His aide swallowed. "Is that bad?" Oren thought about the old woman with the burned hands, whose face he had seen on 1,000 monitoring feeds without ever knowing her name. "It depends," he said, "on whether they remember how to come back from it." Below them, the dust kept falling, and the fleet began to wake up. High Speaker Vale had not set foot on Earth in 23 years. When his shuttle door opened, the first thing he noticed was that no one had come to greet him. No music, no banners, no line of dignitaries with practiced smiles, just a single landing officer in a plain uniform and a long, quiet hallway leading away from the platform. This was, Vale understood at once, deliberate. In compact diplomacy, the absence of ceremony was itself a message. It said, "We are not pretending today." He walked the hallway alone. His 4 guards stayed at the shuttle. Earth had asked for that. Director Haas was waiting at the end of the hallway. He did not bow. He did not extend a hand. He simply turned and walked, and Vale followed, and they entered the council chamber without a word. Inside, the table was not the same one from 3 days ago. This was a different room, larger, colder. There were more chairs now, more people, more screens on the walls showing live feeds from shipyards, troop centers, and 3 orbital construction stations that had not existed 2 weeks ago. Vale saw the screens. He understood immediately that Earth had not waited for his arrival to begin. He sat down. Haas sat across from him. Renaa stood behind Haas in uniform now, her hands folded behind her back. Vale cleared his throat softly. He spoke the compact's formal opening phrases. He spoke of shared sorrow, of the strength of grief, of the long road of justice. He spoke for about 4 minutes. When he was done, Haas slid a thin folder across the table. "What is this?" Vale asked. "Our list of demands." "This is not how the tribunal process begins, Director." "I know," Haas said. "We are not beginning the tribunal process." Vale was very still. "I see." Renaa spoke for the first time. Her voice was quiet, but it filled the room without effort. "High Speaker, we have read the compact's official position. We have read the tribunal procedure. We have read the timeline, 12 to 18 years. Possibly 20 if the Vorath file delays. We have read every page." She placed her own copy of the procedure on the table. "We buried 412 million people in 4 days. Many of them are still being buried. There are children in our camps tonight who do not know if their parents are dead or simply not yet found. You are asking those children to wait 18 years for a verdict." Vale folded his long fingers together. "I am asking them to remain civilized. Civilization is what protects us all. If Earth acts alone, the entire galactic order may collapse. Other species will see that the tribunal can be ignored. Wars will multiply. Many more children will lose their parents than the 400 million you have lost." He said it gently. He believed it. Vale was not a cruel man. He had spent his life trying to keep peace by keeping rules. Renaa listened. She did not interrupt. When he finished, she said only one sentence. "We tried civilization. It did not protect our children." The silence after that was not angry. That was the strange part. It was simply true. There was nothing in the compact's procedure that could answer it. Vale tried anyway. "If you do this, the compact will be forced to consider sanctions, trade embargoes, possibly isolation." "We expected that," Haas said. "Possibly worse." "We expected that too." Vale looked at them both. Then he looked at the screens behind them, at the shipyards working at full capacity, at the new orbital stations, at the long lines of new soldiers being trained at speed. "How long have you been preparing this?" Renaa answered, "Since the 2nd day." Not the third when you broadcast. The broadcast was the announcement. The decision was made on the second day. The first day, we were still counting. Vale closed his eyes for a moment. He had been a diplomat for 60 years. He knew when an argument was over. He stood up slowly. He did not take the folder Earth had given him. He did not take the list of demands. Those were not for him. Those were for the Vorath, and Earth would deliver them in their own way. At the door he stopped. He turned back. "May I say one thing, not as a speaker, as a person?" Haas nodded. Vale chose his words carefully. "I have lived a long time. I have watched many species in many crises. I am afraid of what you are about to become, not because I think you are wrong, because I think you are right, and I am afraid of the cost of being right in this way." Renat answered him just as carefully. "So are we, High Speaker, so are we." Vale bowed his head, then he left. When the door closed, Haas leaned back in his chair. He looked tired in a way that no sleep would fix. "Do you think he will help us?" "No," Renat said, "but I think he will not get in our way. That is enough." She turned and walked to the screens on the wall. She watched the shipyards. She watched the new soldiers. She watched a young woman in a training uniform stop mid-step and put her hand against a wall to steady herself, because grief had caught her again, the way it catches everyone when they are not expecting it. Renat watched the young woman take a breath and keep walking. "Begin the deployment," she said quietly. "Tell General Doro the fleet leaves at dawn." Behind her, Haas picked up a comm. The order went out. And somewhere in deep space, a Vorath fleet marshal who had not slept properly in 18 days received a message from his sensor officer. The message said, "They are coming." Lieutenant Paco Mir had a habit of touching the steel wall of the corridor every time he walked past it. He did not do it because he was superstitious. He did it because the wall was cold, and the cold reminded him that he was awake, and that what was happening was real, and that the names printed on it were not names he had imagined. He touched it again now, on his way to the bridge. The wall ran for 32 meters. It was bolted to the corridor outside the command deck of the ISV Relentless. It had not been there before the war. The captain had ordered it installed before they left Earth orbit. Every name on it belonged to someone who had died in the harbor district, or in the western city, or in the southern coastal zone. The names were small. They had to be to fit them all. There were over 400 million names. Some of the wall, of course, was just the names of children whose parents had not yet been found, written by friends or neighbors who remembered them. Some names were repeated because 2 different families had given the same record. The captain had said, "Leave them all. Do not clean it up. The mess is part of the truth." Paco entered the bridge. Captain Sira Ndola was in her chair, reading sensor data. She did not look up. She did not need to. She knew his step. "Lieutenant, position." 3 hours from the Vorath border, Captain. The fleet is in formation. All ships reporting normal. "Stealth." "Off, Captain, as ordered." Sira nodded slowly. "Good." Paco hesitated. He had been on this ship for 5 months. He had been Sira's tactical officer for 2. He had not yet asked her the question that had been sitting in his chest like a small stone since they left Earth. He almost did not ask it now. But the wall in the corridor had felt very cold tonight, and he had touched it longer than usual. "Captain, may I ask something, off the record?" Sira turned in her chair. She studied his face for a long moment. Then she stood up. "Walk with me." She did not lead him to her office. She led him back out into the corridor, to the wall. They stood in front of it. Paco could see his own reflection in the polished steel between the names. "Ask," Sira said. Paco took a breath. "Captain, we are about to do things to the Vorath that the Vorath did to us. We are about to kill their soldiers, their fleet officers, probably some of their civilians, even if we try not to. We are about to break every compact rule of engagement that exists, and I keep thinking, if we do this, are we still different from them?" He said it quickly. He could not look at her while he said it. He looked at the names instead. Sira was quiet for a long time. She did not answer right away. That was her way. She had been a captain for 9 years, and she had learned that fast answers to hard questions were almost always wrong answers. Finally she spoke. "Lieutenant, the Vorath struck us during peace talks. They sent no warning. They gave no reason. They killed civilians on purpose. They have not in 3 weeks sent a single message to explain. Do you remember that?" "Yes, Captain. We are coming with our weapons running, our sensors loud. Our fleet broadcast clear in the open, having declared war in writing against military targets only, after the compact refused to act. Do you see the difference?" "I see it, Captain. I am asking if it is enough." Sierra turned to face him. Her face was very serious, but it was not angry. She was, he realized, taking him seriously. "I do not know if it is enough," she said. "I do not know if any line we draw will be enough to keep us human at the end of this. I am not going to lie to you and say it will be. We may come back from this and find that we left something on the other side of the border that we cannot get back." Paco swallowed. "But," Sierra said, "the question is not whether the line is enough. The question is whether we draw a line at all. The Vorath did not. That is the difference. That is the only difference. And we have to hold it, Lieutenant. Not because it makes us pure, because it is the only thing that keeps us from becoming what we are about to fight." She looked at the wall. "You are going to do hard things in the next few weeks. So am I. We are going to hate ourselves for some of them. That is correct. That is the price. If we ever stop hating it, that is the day we have lost the line. Tell me when you see that day in me. Tell me, even if I am your captain, especially if I am your captain. Do you understand?" Paco's eyes were wet. He nodded. "Yes, Captain." "Good." Sierra turned and walked back toward the bridge. At the door she paused. 3 hours, Lieutenant. Go check the formation." He saluted. She returned it. She went inside. Paco stayed at the wall for another minute. He pressed his palm flat against it the way he always did. The steel was cold. The names were small. He read 3 of them at random. He memorized them. He did not know who they had been, but he carried them with him as he walked back to his station. Far ahead, on a Vorath command ship, Fleet Marshal Gurak watched his sensor screen. The human fleet was not slowing down. It was not hiding. It was coming straight at him with every system lit. He had served 40 years in war. He had never seen a fleet move this way. A fleet that hides is afraid. A fleet that announces itself has accepted that it will not stop. He reached for his comm. "All ships, defensive formation now." His hand was shaking. He had not noticed until then. The first shot of the war came from a science vessel. That was something the historians would later argue about for years. They would say it was the wrong way to start a war. They would say a science vessel was not built for combat. They would point out that the ship in question had been retrofitted in only 19 days, that its hull was thinner than military spec, that its captain was a research officer who had never fired a weapon in anger. All of that was true. None of it mattered. The science vessel, ISV Hopewell, fired the first shot because it happened to be the first Earth ship to come within range of the first Vorath patrol cruiser at the Jurkaz border. And its captain, a quiet woman named Iris Lynn, had been told the rules of engagement before she left Earth orbit. The rules were short. Director Haas had written them himself. 1. Military targets only. 2. No orbital bombardment of civilian zones. 3. No quarter for any Vorath ship that does not begin civilian evacuation broadcasts within 30 seconds of being disabled. 4. No ceasefire offers accepted in the field. All ceasefire requests must come through the compact, in writing, signed by Vorath High Command. 5. If you are not sure, do not fire. Captain Lynn was sure. She fired. The Vorath patrol cruiser disintegrated. Its crew of 72 never had time to send a distress signal. The Hopewell scanned the wreckage for 30 seconds, confirmed no escape pods, and continued on its scouting path. The war had started. Within 4 hours, the main Earth fleet engaged the Vorath border defense line. It was not a battle. That was what surprised the compact observers most, watching from a long distance. They had expected something messy, something emotional. They had expected the famous human anger they had heard about in old reports. Instead, what they saw was machinery. Earth ships moved in formation. They fired in sequence. They covered each other's flanks with a precision that suggested days of practice and weeks of grief processed into pure focus. When a Vorath ship was hit, an Earth ship counted 30 seconds. If evacuation signals appeared, that ship was left alone. If they did not, the ship was destroyed completely. 23 Vorath ships chose to broadcast evacuation signals. Their crews were allowed to escape in pods. Earth did not pursue the pods. 11 Vorath ships did not broadcast. Earth destroyed them all. Fleet Marshal Gurak watched it happen from his command ship. He had 37 vessels at the start of the engagement. He had 19 at the end of it. He ordered a full retreat to the second defensive line. Earth pursued. In the middle of the chaos, on a small administrative outpost on the planet Djurkaz itself, a civilian Vorath named Tolik was trying to evacuate 700 people. Tolik was not a soldier. He was a regional administrator. He oversaw water systems and food distribution and the schools. When the Earth fleet appeared in his sky, he did the only thing he knew how to do. He started loading transport ships with civilians and broadcasting on every non-military frequency he could find. His message was simple. He said his name. He said his job. He said the number of civilians he was trying to evacuate. He gave the coordinates of his transports. He said in 3 different compact trade languages, "Please, we are not military." Most Earth ships in the area ignored him. They were not targeting civilians. They had no reason to engage him. But one ship heard him. The ISV Relentless picked up his signal as it moved into orbit. Captain Sira Ndola listened to the broadcast twice. Then she opened a channel to her own command ship, where General Daro was coordinating the engagement. "General, I have a civilian evacuation broadcast from a Vorath surface administrator. 700 people. He is requesting safe passage. He is not a military signal. He is not a trick. I have analyzed his voice. He is afraid." There was a long pause. Then Doro's voice came back, steady, tired. "Your call, Captain." Sira turned to her bridge. "Detach the Briarwood and the Cana. Escort the civilian transports out of the engagement zone. No engagement unless fired upon. If they reach safe space, return to formation." Lieutenant Paco Mir transmitted the order. The Briarwood and the Cana broke from the main fleet. They moved into orbit beside Tolik's transports. They did not fire. They simply flew alongside them, escorting them past 3 Vorath patrol stations and out into the quiet space beyond the engagement zone. Tolik, on his small bridge, watched the 2 Earth ships through his viewport. He did not understand what was happening. He had expected to die. His hands were shaking on the controls. When the Earth ships turned back, the lead pilot of the Briarwood sent him one short message in his own language. "Go home. Do not come back to this border." Tolik wept. He did not know why. He flew the 700 people to a safe colony 3 days away. He never spoke of it publicly. He did not have to. The compact heard about it within a day. Delegate Oran, watching from his quiet ship, made a long entry in his official log. He wrote, "Earth's fleet is more dangerous than any military force I have ever observed. They fight without hesitation. They take no prisoners they cannot keep. They do not negotiate in the field. By any measure of the compact standards, they are conducting the most ruthless war in modern recorded history." He paused, then he added a second paragraph. "And today, they detached 2 warships in the middle of an active engagement to escort 700 enemy civilians to safety. They asked for nothing in return. The civilians did not even know how to thank them. The Earth ships did not wait to find out." He set down his stylus. "I do not know what to call this kind of war. The compact does not have a word for it yet, but I think we will have to invent one." Far below, on Djurkaz, Tolik's transport ships disappeared into the dark. And the war moved on. High Commander Drell had never been afraid of a piece of paper before. It sat on his desk now, unfolded, plain, 8 pages. Earth's terms delivered through the Galactic Compact, signed by Director Haas, sealed in red wax that no one in Voreth High Command had been able to identify. Drell had read the 8 pages 4 times. He had not slept since the 3rd reading. Outside his window, the capital city of the Voreth homeworld glowed in the evening light. The towers were still standing. The factories still ran. No Earth ship had ever crossed into the inner systems. The war had not reached this far. But the war had reached far enough. In 6 weeks, the Voreth fleet had lost 241 warships. The Jurkaz border was gone. The Teles sector was gone. 3 of the Dominion's 7 main shipyards had been disabled, not destroyed, just disabled with surgical precision, as if Earth had wanted very specifically to make a point about what they could choose not to do. Drell had begged the Compact to mediate. He had used the word begged in his own private notes. He had not used that word in 40 years of public service. Now the Compact had sent him a reply, and the reply was Earth's terms. He read them a 5th time. The first term required the public trial of Fleet Marshal Gurak and the 11 officers who had executed the strike order. Public, on Compact-monitored broadcast, with Earth's witnesses present. The second term required the permanent demilitarization of 3 Voreth systems nearest Earth's territory. Compact monitors, permanent, non-negotiable. The third term required full reparations, paid over 40 standard years in materials and labor, to be used for the rebuilding of the 3 destroyed cities. The fourth term was the one that had kept him from sleeping. It said, if any of these terms are violated within the next 100 years, Earth reserves the right to resume military action without further notice and without further tribunal process. 100 years. No notice. No tribunal. He set the paper down. He pressed his palms flat against the desk. A soft knock on his door. High-speaker Vale entered. Drell did not stand. Vale did not seem to expect him to. The speaker walked slowly to the chair across the desk and sat down. He looked at the paper. He looked at Drell. You called for me. I called for you, Drell said. His voice was hoarse. Speaker, I want you to tell me honestly your judgment on these terms, as a Compact official, as someone who has read every war treaty in modern record. Vale folded his hands. You want me to tell you they are barbaric. I want you to tell me the truth. Vale was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the paper again. He looked through the window at the city. They are not barbaric, High Commander. That is what makes them difficult. Explain. A barbaric demand would be the destruction of your government. A barbaric demand would be the surrender of your population. A barbaric demand would be territorial occupation. None of that is here. Vale tapped the paper gently. What is here is precise. It is structured. It is legal. It addresses the strike. It punishes the officers responsible. It demilitarizes the systems that present an immediate threat to Earth. It funds the rebuilding of what was destroyed. And it includes a deterrent clause that, frankly, I would have expected from a tribunal verdict, not from a sovereign demand. The 100-year clause. Yes. That is not deterrent. That is a knife held to our throat for a century. It is a knife, Vale agreed. But it is a knife held there by your own conduct. If you do not violate the terms, the knife does not move. If you do violate the terms, you have already broken your own treaty. The clause is not unjust, High Commander. It is uncomfortable. There is a difference. Drell closed his eyes. And Fleet Marshal Gurak, they want a public trial. They want a public accounting. There is a difference there too. Gurak ordered the strike. He gave the command in writing. There are records. The trial will not be a ceremony. It will be a fact. Vale leaned forward slightly. High Commander, may I be honest with you? Please. I have spent 6 weeks watching the Earth fleet. I have read every report. I have seen what they do to military targets. I have also seen what they do not do. They have not entered a single civilian zone. They have not bombarded a single population center. They detached 2 warships in the middle of an active engagement to escort 700 of your civilians to safety. They have followed their own rules with an exactness that I, frankly, did not expect from any species in active grief." He paused. "These terms are the most generous I have ever seen offered by a victorious party in the modern era. I say that as a compact official. I say that knowing what I am saying." Drell opened his eyes. He looked very old. "And if I refuse?" Vale did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was very quiet. "If you refuse, I think Earth will continue the war. And I think they will not stop until every Vorath warship is gone. They will not strike your cities. They will not need to. They will simply remove your ability to ever threaten them again. And then they will go home. And the galaxy will remember that this is what happens when a peaceful species is pushed past the line of civilization." Drell was silent for a long time. Then he picked up the paper. He picked up his pen. His hand did not shake. He had decided. He signed. He pushed the paper back across the desk to Vale. "Take it to them," he said. "Tell them we accept." Vale took the paper carefully. He stood. At the door he turned back. "High Commander, for what it is worth, I am sorry." "For what?" "For all of us. For what we did not prevent. For what we forced them to become. For what they will carry home." Drell did not answer. Vale left. The paper went with him, into the long dark toward Earth. The paper flowers were the part nobody had planned. A school teacher in a small inland town had taught her students how to fold them in the weeks before the memorial. She had not done it as part of any government program. She had done it because one of her students had asked what the memorial would look like, and she had not known what to say, so she had taught them to fold flowers instead. The students had folded them all summer. Some were lopsided. Some had names written on them in crayon. Some had no names at all because the children who folded them had not yet learned to write. By the time the Memorial Day came, there were 112,000 paper flowers. They had been collected by mail, by neighbors, by soldiers who heard about the project and asked to deliver them on their way home from the front. The first one was placed at sunrise, by a small girl, at the base of the wall in what used to be the harbor district. She was 8 years old. Her mother stood behind her. Her mother did not cry. She had used up all her crying months ago. She just held her daughter's shoulder gently and watched her place the folded flower carefully against the smooth gray stone. There were 3 walls now, one in each city. They were simple, no statues, no words carved across the top in gold, just names, stone, quiet. Admiral Renat Soli stood at the eastern wall, in the southern coastal zone, where her sister's name was somewhere among the small letters. She was not in uniform. She had retired from active command 3 months earlier. She wore a dark coat. Her hair was shorter than it had been during the war. She had not spoken to a journalist in a year. Lieutenant Paco Mir stood beside her. He was not a lieutenant anymore either. He had been promoted to commander after the ceasefire, and then he had requested transfer to Earth's Reconstruction Office, and now he wore a plain blue jacket with no rank on it. He was 26 years old. His face had the look of someone who had aged in a way that years could not explain. They did not speak for a long time. Eventually, Paco said the thing he had been holding for a year. "Admiral, may I ask you something?" "You can call me Renat. The war is over." "Renat," he paused, "do you think we went too far?" She looked at the wall. She thought about the question seriously. She did not answer quickly. "I think we went exactly as far as we had to go. I think the difference between us and them is that we knew where to stop, and we stopped." She paused. "But I think we left things on the other side of that border that we will not get back. I think there are people walking among us today who are quieter than they used to be, who do not laugh in the same way, who flinch when they hear certain sounds. I think that is the price. I do not think we paid too much, but I think we paid." Paco nodded slowly. "Some nights," he said, "I cannot sleep. I think about the ships we destroyed that did not broadcast. I think about whether the crews knew the rule, whether they understood that they had 30 seconds, whether they were trying and the system was broken." Some of them were trying. I know. You are going to think about that for the rest of your life. I know. She put her hand on his arm, just briefly. Good, she said. He understood what she meant. A few meters away, the small girl with her mother had moved on from the wall. She was looking at the long row of paper flowers that other people had brought. She was not crying. She was just looking. She was 8 years old and she was learning what a memorial was. Behind them, walking quietly along the path that ran beside the wall, was a tall figure in a long, compact robe. Delegate Oron had not been invited. He had come anyway. He stood at a respectful distance. He did not speak to the families. He did not speak to the press. The press did not even notice him. He was just one more visitor among thousands. When the crowds began to thin, late in the afternoon, he approached Renaa. She saw him coming. She did not look surprised. Delegate. Admiral, forgive me, I am intruding. You are not intruding. You are welcome here. He looked at the wall. He looked at the paper flowers. He looked at the small girl, now sitting on a bench with her mother, eating a piece of bread. He spoke very slowly. I have served this compact for 41 years. I have watched many species after their wars. I have watched them build statues. I have watched them write songs. I have watched them carve victory into stone. He paused. I have never, in 41 years, watched a species come back from a war like this and remember how to fold paper flowers with their children. Renaa did not answer. There was nothing to say to that. Oron bowed his head. Then he turned and walked away slowly toward the road where his shuttle was waiting. The sun began to set. As it touched the horizon, the memorial lights came on. They had been built into the foundations of the 3 walls. 3 pillars of soft white light rose from the ground, straight up into the darkening sky. They were visible from orbit. They were visible from the moon. They were visible on a clear night from the compact's nearest monitoring station, 16 light-years away. The pillars did not pulse. They did not flicker. They simply stood. Renaa watched them for a long time. Then she took her sister's name in her mind, the small one printed somewhere on the wall behind her, and she carried it home with her, the way every person on Earth that night carried something home. The pillars stayed lit. They are still lit. They will be lit every Memorial Day for as long as Earth remembers what it cost to remain itself. And the galaxy, watching from a distance, learned a word it had never needed before. It learned what it meant to come back.